Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we share real stories, lessons, and light bulb moments that help franchise teams shift from just solving problems to actually driving long-term growth. I am Jen Brannon. I am your host today, and I am joined by one of our favorite people here at AC Inc., Paige Peavler, who's one of our advisors. And Paige, I'm not going to kind of release the secret yet. You can tell us all your words of wisdom and so on, but Paige has so much experience in franchising, and she really, our topic today is coaching versus consulting, and Paige knows a lot about this topic because I know that she has experienced it all over the years, and she's really going to talk to us about what the benefits are when coaching is done right. So now at AC Inc., Paige has worked with lots of brands all across North America and really helping them make the shift between what they're doing in the brands to strategic growth coaching framework. Paige, I think you have facilitated some of our courses and you've even run some of our performance groups. So we just want to hear all of your words of wisdom and everything that you've learned along the way. So I'm excited to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Well, I hope I have some pearls of wisdom here to give to everybody. It's hard to take your 20 years of experience and whittle it down, but we'll do our best today.
Amazing. Awesome. Okay, so before we, I hit you with all kinds of questions and we move forward, I'd love for you just to share with our audience a little bit about your experience and some of the brands that you worked with and your different roles before we were able to snag you for AC Inc.
Sure. So I was not always in franchising. I was in corporate America, working for Newell Rubbermaid and one of their brands long ago. And then I decided I wanted to get out of that and go do something that really utilized my undergraduate degree, which was, believe it or not, it was a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And I came across this little snippet looking for a GM for this new concept. And at the time it was named something else, but it ended up being School of Rock. And I opened the very first School of Rock kind of here in the Midwest. And it was very small at the time. I think there might have been 18 locations total. They had just started selling. And I knew nothing, which is oftentimes the best learner, right? The best way to learn something is when you know nothing. So I opened the school. I did all the things that I had no idea if they were going to work. And I got really super lucky because opening a concept that no one's ever heard of before in a huge market like the city of Chicago, it was not an easy endeavor. And so anyway, I worked there. I rose through the ranks. My school became quite successful, which I'm really proud about. And then I started working more on the corporate side, being the only field support person for a very long time, as well as director of new schools. So I would actually take the schools from open to, or from sale to really open in 3 months beyond. And then we started branching out into international operations. So I was there for quite a bit and I cut my teeth and really learned a lot with that experience. From there, I went to, where did I go? I went to Mad Science, which AC Inc. has worked with. I worked with them for a bit, for about a year. Of course, then, what happens, COVID happened. So that was really interesting as well. Another child program. I also worked for a small franchise called One River School of Art and Design. I worked with an investment group and grew their portfolio. And then I took a little bit of time off, and then I went to Code Ninjas, which is very large, and that's all over. That's in the UK and Canada, and me and my counterpart, we had a team because they had 400 locations in 3 countries, and so we had a team. And at the time, that particular franchise hadn't rolled out any kind of field support. Franchisees didn't even know what that looked like and had never heard of it before. So that was a really interesting time because we had to convince them that obviously field support was very important. We wanted to be partners, so there were a lot of really good challenges there. And then from there, I kind of started my own company and then came on board with AC Inc. and been here for a year, a little over
Yeah.
a year at this point, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're thrilled to have you with your breadth of experience in working with different franchisors in different stages, and having been so experienced working directly with franchisees. So one of the things I actually want to ask you about is when you were with the Brannon and there was no field support. Why do you think that quite often franchisors don't realize the need or the positive impact that field support can bring to franchisees?
I think sometimes they're just so in the weeds, they're growing so quickly that sadly the field support falls off the radar. Because if they, like for instance, Code and Inches grew to 400 locations in 5 years. That is like
Fast.
an enormous amount of growth, right? And a very short amount of time. And so sometimes franchisors, the way that they're making money to keep things going is to sell, right? To sell franchises. But then, oftentimes they don't take a step back and go, we need to get our operations together. We need to figure out what they need. I mean, one of the things that I think School of Rock did really, really well is when it did eventually get purchased by a PE, we took a year off. Now, it wasn't a year off. I wasn't like on the beach or anything, but it was a year of us taking a step back and really getting the operations straight, getting the field support straight, really understanding what needed to happen before we moved forward. And I think that's really important to be able to say we need to pause here. We have to pause and do this correctly rather than just barreling on. But I think there's, obviously they want money coming in, but when you grow too quickly, oftentimes the first thing that falls through the cracks is the field support.
That's right. I think a lot of brands don't recognize or take some time to recognize because you get so focused on the operations, right? And making sure that we're creating good operators. But what we don't understand is the support to level those people up into good business owners either, and how that can actually translate to increase top line revenue, as well as what's important to us is also increasing franchisee profitability at the same time.
Well, and I think the other thing too that people forget is not all franchisees are created equal, right? They all come from a varied mixed bag of backgrounds. Some may have been entrepreneurs before, some may have come from corporate America, some may have been a stay-at-home parent or whatever it may be. And so they're not all created equal. So while you may have some franchisees who take the ball and they run and they're doing great, you have others that don't know what they don't know and they really struggle, and there's no one there to support them, and oftentimes they feel like silos and they feel very alone and they're the only ones going through this. And this is where field support really is critical, because it's not because they don't know how to do something, it's just that no one's ever really taught them. They don't realize that working in corporate America is very different than owning your own business, and what does that look like, and how you have to show up every day, weekends and nights included, right? To get to that point. So I think that's the thing that most franchisors don't realize. They're vetting people certainly, and these people they want to do well, right? They all want to succeed, but because there's such a huge gap between those that are ready to do it and those that really don't know enough, that's where field support can step in and really help those folks out.
Yep, absolutely. So as a field coach working with franchisees, what are some of you've actually talked about a few, but what are some of the other biggest challenges that coaches experience trying to support franchisees?
Well, if you have too many franchisees rolling up to you, I mean, I had someone who reported to me she had 75 locations and they weren't multi-unit. They were 75 different
Wow,
people.
that's heavy.
There's no way you can get to all of them. That's really hard. And this is where it goes back to where franchisors sometimes don't think that, well, they've got field support. Well, they may only talk to a franchisee maybe once a year. That's not enough. The sweet spot is probably 30. So that you get to know the franchisees, you get to know what their pain points are, how you can help them. They feel like they can rely on you, that kind of thing. So I feel like one of the things that's the hardest is when you are put into a position where you just have way too many locations, because there's no way that you can possibly create relationships and support all of them.
Right.
So who gets the help? The squeaky wheels.
Right.
Right.
And that is a great kind of segue into the fact that, yes, we can form those relationships, or we maybe can't form those relationships as well, and we don't get to see our franchisees when we have so many. But really, also, we can't do strategic growth coaching. We
No.
actually cannot coach them for growth. Instead, we are doing what we call, consulting versus coaching. And
That's
that's
right.
kind of, Paige, where I want to go with this conversation is, as we know, consulting is really where we are doing that operational stuff, that check-in, that what do you need? How are things going? This is what you should do, in order to do, whatever, have better customer service or whatever the thing is, where we are being, as coaches, I've been there, you've been there. How much of our time do we spend firefighting and just providing answers as opposed to actually coaching franchisees? So can we talk a little bit about the difference between the two, and maybe even if you want to relate some of your experience of when you were stuck consulting, and then the difference of when you actually had the opportunity to coach franchisees instead?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, consulting to me is like a checklist. You're just checking things off, or to your point, you're firefighting because there's always crises. Coaching is not. Coaching really is kind of slow paced, if you will. Probably more slow paced than most franchisors want. But in order to kind of get that juice from that squeeze, you have to be slow and methodical. You have to listen. You have to relate. You have to ask a lot of questions. Consulting is really like, okay, here's how you do it, steps A through Z, and let me know how that worked out for you. And, while that's great, and don't get me wrong, oftentimes as a coach, sometimes you do need to consult. There's certain things you have to do because there may be brand standards, there may be some SOPs that they do have to follow, right? But in order to create this relationship where they can grow profitably, you do have to coach, and you have to find out where they're at in that moment with their business. Where do they want to go? Sometimes you have to go back to all the way in the beginning. Why did you purchase this business? What does it mean to you to have this business? So that you can remind them later when it gets really hard, and it does get really hard at times, why they're doing this. Is it because they want to go on vacation, they want to have that beach house, they want to have generational wealth, whatever it may be. With consulting, you don't get any of that. It's like you get in, you get out, you get whatever the task was done, and then you move on. And so they're kind of stuck. The other thing that happens too is when you consult, that's all that the franchisee sees. They just see you as the person who's going to answer their questions on how to do something. And that's not teaching them to fish, right? That's just, you're fishing for them, you're giving them the fish, they're used to that. And then it becomes a time thing. Then it becomes that you're constant, that's all you're doing, right? So when you coach, you're teaching them how to come up with these things. You're, listening and having them, come to the conclusions on their own, because we all know when someone comes up with their own strategy, their own solution, they're far more likely to actually see it through to the end than for you and I to say, you should just do this. And then you come back to them and say, well, did you do that? And they're going to be like, well, not really, you know. So it just is far more meaningful when you can coach. When I was consulting, I mean, honestly, when I was much younger and at School of Rock, I probably consulted all the time because I knew what worked for me. So if it worked for me, maybe it might work for you, because I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. The folks that I could say that I coached, they were a little bit more willing and would actually ask me questions. And then I would, kind of turn it around on them. I think where I've really started to coach more is as I've gotten older and realized the consulting thing, it takes a lot of time. Then you don't really know what they're actually doing. You can't really hold them accountable. When you're coaching, you're setting that pace, together. And so therefore you can hold them accountable and ask the hard questions and be able to get somewhere. I think, I'm working with a group right now. They kind of lost their way, these franchisees. They kind of forgot why they were doing this or what excited them about purchasing this particular franchise. And as we've worked through it, to see all of a sudden them to get that excitement again. And we always start every meeting with, what were your wins? And the wins are fabulous because they feel like, oh, this is my business. I get to make these decisions. I get to decide what the course of my business is. And they forgot about that. And sometimes you just need to remind them. So it's been really great to see this group of franchisees kind of blossom, if you will, and hunger for strategies. How can I go about doing this? And then they become each other's accountability partners, which is always great. And they work together on solutions because, let's face it, as a franchisor, your mom and dad, and the franchisees are your kids. And as we all know, the kids don't ever listen to mom and dad, especially when they're teenagers. But if you get the crazy Aunt Paige down the street who says the same exact thing as mom and dad, but all of a sudden it becomes gospel, right? I mean, that happens in every franchise organization. Don't feel bad, kids. It happens everywhere, And we're happy to be the crazy Aunt Paige down the street.
There you go.
The exact same,
No, for sure. You said some really, really great things there. And I think that consulting a lot of times is the telling. And I did that too. I was a franchisee who did pretty well, and I then was coaching other franchisees, and all I did at the time was tell them what they should do because I did it. It worked for me, so that's what you should do. And so if we talk a little bit, and you mentioned a whole whack of them, what is the downside when we are only consulting and we are not coaching? Well, whoever we are, the coach and anybody from the franchisor, when we're doing all of the telling, then is that really getting franchisees to buy in? Is that motivating them? Whereas if we're coaching, it's really their idea. And the way we coach is by using our techniques and our strategies to get them to figure it out themselves and to get them to own the action step that they need to do in order to grow their business. And that's all, those coaching techniques. And it stops being us telling them. And then to your point also, when they're so reliant on their coach, we're not teaching a man or a woman to fish. We're just telling them the answers. So when they need something, who's the first one that they're calling? Is their coach, as opposed to trying to figure it out themselves or being able to have the skills to break it down and to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? Or what do I think the best route forward is? Are there any other risks or consequences, Paige, that you can think about when all we're doing is consulting?
Yeah, I mean, you think at the time when you're consulting that this will be quick, right? I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out, I'm going to tell them exactly what they need to do, and I move on. The problem with that is it's very short-sighted because, to your point, they are going to constantly call you now for the answer rather than searching for the answer themselves. Well, if you've got 50 franchisees there's not enough hours in the day and the week and the month and the year to handle all of that.
Right.
And then they get frustrated, right? So, and also boundaries. We talked about this on one of the roundtables with our field support guys and gals. And, you know, oftentimes there's no boundaries. They're calling you at midnight because they can, not because it really is a crisis, right? And I think that's exhausting. And I think that's what burns a lot of field support people out, because they simply, there's no boundaries. They can call them for anything and everything. So while coaching might be a slower start, if you get someone who has bought in and they start thinking of the solutions themselves, and they have a strategy and a framework within, you know, that they work within, then they become less reliant on the field support. And then that field support person has a little bit more time and energy to support someone who may really need a lot of support right now for whatever reason. So it seems almost, I think franchisors think, well, you should just get in there and tell them all the answers, you know, but really it's going to burn your people out. You're going to see a lot of turnover. You're going to see and then you get franchisees who go, well, this is like my third FBC, and I've had to go through all of this, you know, multiple times.
Again, yep. Yep.
And so all of that's not good.
For sure. And that's such a great point, because the coaches, it's not over, you know, if their workload is heavy and they're just going in and telling franchisees what to do. But a lot of times when we don't have a strategic growth coaching framework, and I know I bring that up quite a bit, but it's because we go in, and I've seen so many coaches do it, and I know that I've done it countless times in the past, is we start our conversation with, hey, what's going on? And then what we hear is all the bad stuff, all the complaints, all the issues, all the fires, and it's like, blah. And then the coaching call is spent dealing with those fires, and then time's up, and away we go. And so all of it wasn't super productive for the franchisee. I mean, maybe they got some answers and they got some stuff off their chest, which we franchisees do like to complain. And I can say that because I was a franchisee.
We are therapists.
For 20 years, right. And so I think I can say that. But it's that coach is, what impact are they making? And coaches, typically, that's why they do it. They want to help. They want to see franchisees grow and reach their goals and really have a part in that. And when all you're hearing is all of the negative stuff, that absolutely contributes to the burnout, for sure. So
it does. And I think one of the things that we do, and that I started doing even before AC Inc., is always starting every call or every visit with, what were some wins?
Yes.
What are wins? Because you want to start it off in a very positive manner. And sometimes they really have to think about it. I'm like, look, it doesn't have to be this enormous thing. It can be small. You check something off your to-do list and you feel good about it, whatever it may be. I think that's really important, because if you allow them to get to that place where then it just becomes this, you know, session of, you know, kvetching, and you're not going to get very far. And they don't feel good. They don't feel better after that call. You know, maybe they might have gotten nothing, but they don't feel like anything changed.
Right.
Other than sharing what is going on with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Paige, just to kind of wrap up as we're nearing the end, I would love to hear from your perspective that we talk about changing from consulting to coaching. Let's talk about the work that you've done with some of AC Inc.'s clients, and how you've helped. What have you done with them as far as our services and solutions go that has really been able to help, whether it's directly with the franchisees or with the franchisor and their teams, to move that shift from consulting to coaching?
Sure. I've worked with a lot of brands right now, many of them emerging or just on the precipice of getting, you know, to be a mid brand, meaning 50 or more, right? Where they did not have any field coaching. They had no field support other than, a few people in the office and everybody was wearing multiple hats. That's great when you're emerging. I get it. I've been there, I've done that. But what we start with is performance groups. So it's almost like fractional field coaching, if you will, where we take a small group of franchisees, maybe 6 to 8, and we meet with them every other week. And we walk them through how to fish, basically, which is great. We show them scorecards. We show them the growth action plan. We talk about leadership because oftentimes many of these people have never had to be someone's boss. And that's a whole new thing. We talk about staffing. We talk about core values, all those kinds of things. So that's a great first step for a franchisor who does not have any field support. From there, we go to franchisors who are like, okay, we need help building our team. So then we go into action and we will interview, we will vet, we will, find them the right coaches for that particular brand. And then we'll train them with our Accelerator programs, which is great, all about strategic growth coaching. I'm just finishing up writing a manual on coaching for a brand so that they have that in their back pocket as they hire on all of their, field support teams. Here it is, kids. It's all in one great little package. So I think, for the brands that work with us, I think they totally see the value, first of all, because we're taking things off their plate so that they can focus on other things, which is really important. But also now we're training their field support and their franchisees to understand what coaching means and how that's going to change the trajectory really of that franchise, right? And make it a lot easier for them than if they've never had field support or they continue to consult.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one thing that you mentioned when you talked about the manual that you're creating for this one particular brand, the strategic growth coaching framework, which is, a proprietary AC Inc. Creation, if you will. It is the thing, implementing that and totally changing the way brands are coaching franchisees. And the framework is everything from the structure and the tools and the resources and the techniques and all of these things. And we're going to have some podcasts really just about it coming up. Helping brands implement that so they have that structure, they have that consistency across coaches. And what that does, it allows the focus of these field coaches to be on growing franchisees, growing their top line sales, but also growing the profitability. So money in our pocket, that's us franchisees, that's what we're in this business for a lot of the time, right? And helping us be on that growth trajectory. And then you as my coach is going to help me, you're going to be my partner in this, my accountability partner. And so these performance groups that you mentioned also, we're teaching these franchisees to think that way so that then the coach can can pick up where we've left off. And now these franchisees are thinking strategically now. They're planning, they're setting goals. And now the coach just walks right in there. And now I can help you, Mr. or Mrs. Franchisee, reach those goals and be that partner. So I think just to end here, I think this shift between consulting and coaching really, it levels up a brand. It is what brands need for that long-term health. And what we want to produce from franchisees is franchisees who are growing, they're profitable, and they're happy and satisfied. Because if we have happy and satisfied franchisees, then that is what we need in order to grow our brand, so that we can attract other franchisees that want to be happy and satisfied and making money
That's
as well.
exactly it. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Paige. You are a great guest. I'd love for you to come back.
I will come back anytime. You just let me know.
Amazing. Awesome. Okay. So for those of you who are listening, if you are ready to start coaching for growth instead of just consulting, because I know lots of you out there, you coaches, anybody who works for a franchisor, you're probably saying, yep, that's what we're doing, because it's very normal. I think, for a lot of brands who, whether you're growing quickly or you're just starting out or whatever, or you've been doing this for a long time. We see this with a lot of legacy brands as well. So if this is something that you are really seeing as something that you want to learn more about how to make that switch, you know where to find us. And so just reach out and we'd be happy to have a chat with you. So until next time, go be awesome.